Coming up on Chasing the Natty, it's trading season. We got some great advice for you as trade deadlines approach. In addition to that, we'll give you our Week 8 preview. We'll talk about some of the bigger games this weekend, as well as all the games that have high over-unders and all the fantasy players you should be looking at in those games. All that and more coming right up.
Jones goes to the end zone. Oh, what a catch! Devontae Smith, touchdown, Alabama.
Watch out for Mr. Robinson. This kid is going to be special and is already flashing.
This is Chasing the Natty, a college football fantasy podcast.
All right, y'all, welcome in. This is Jared Palmgren, host of the Chasing the Natty podcast. Hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Across from me, as always, is Mr. Xavier Hood, the better half of the show. We got a lot to get to you guys today. A relatively, I'd say, weaker schedule in terms of this college football season so far. So we're going to condense the amount of games we're going to talk about tonight, and we're going to focus a little bit on trades. We got the trade deadlines coming up in a lot of leagues, so we want to kind of make some discussion on that. In addition to that, y'all make sure you're following us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of the different platforms we're on. Subscribe on YouTube, leave comments, like, ring that notification bell, all those good stuff. Xavier, how are you doing today?
We're doing all right.
So yeah, we got a lot to get to here. So first, we're going to do a little bit of trade talk and everything. Basically, what we're going to do here is I just want to, as we get into this season where a lot of people are pushing for trades at the last minute, I figured we can kind of cover three different aspects of the trade that I think people just need to remember. Now, the big thing here is I'm not here to tell you like how to read a trade or how to maybe like make sure you always get the best deal out of the end of the trade. That is up to you guys at the end of the day, because as we kind of get into some of these three different aspects of a trade, you'll understand where I'm kind of coming from with that. So I got three things up here on the screen. And so you see communication, understanding, respect. I'm going to cover each of those three things here real quick. And Xavier, I'll get your thoughts on each one of these aspects as we go through them. So first thing I want to talk about here is communication. Communication is key in a trade. And basically you don't want your trade offer to, the only way you communicate is basically you set up a trade deal, a trade proposal, send it to the person, see if they accept it or reject it. And that's it. You don't want deals like that. That is a terrible way to go about trading. You have to bring the human element into it and actually talk things out with the person you want to trade. Like basically take some time to find a way to directly talk to that person outside of Fantrax or whatever platform you use. This really just goes for any fantasy league you're in. But again, I'll talk about it with the frame of CFF here. So outside of Fantrax, so whether that be Twitter DMs, if you have their email somehow, or just heck, if you have their phone number, text them, do whatever you can. Just talk them out, hash out details in that space. It makes it a lot better communication. And as we kind of get into these other two things, it makes kind of hashing out a lot of these finer details of a trade a little bit easier. So Xavier, what are your thoughts on communication here?
Yeah, absolutely. I think communication is key in all transactions, whether it comes to fantasy or just in general in life. I think, having that human element is important in terms of like, you're coming at, not to say that you're only there to, like you said, to make that transaction. You want to, not to say bugger them up, but to come in and have like a genuine conversation of like, all right, can we make a deal? Or you like to gauge the interest of if this person is willing or not. So it's always good to hear them out and hear their full thoughts. And maybe you'll find some things that may shock you about some players that are maybe available that you didn't think were, out there, that would be normally available if they're having a good season. They're just like, maybe I'm fine at this position, but I can let this player go if you make the right offer. So those things are good. And I also think that outside opinions are also a necessary, not to say necessary, but I think they're an added bonus in terms of the communication element of like, asking friends or league mates their opinions on the trade. And then, you don't always have to take their word as all, but it's nice to hear, what their thoughts on it. Like, oh, this seems like a really good trade for both sides. Oh, maybe you've undervalued this person, but ultimately it comes down to you. It's your decision to make of whether you think this is in the best interest of your team or not. So, yeah, I think communication definitely is the number one important thing.
I will say Xavier kind of touched on like asking like outside sources, whether that be league mates or experts. If you just ask somebody on Twitter or just DM them on Twitter, asking them like what their thoughts are and everything. Again, communication really comes into key there. When you just you have to explain the rules of the league that you're asking for the trade in. That way people can give you the best opinion that they can give. Because if you just send this person for this person straight up, what do you think? It's like, well, it depends. Is it like a PPR league where wide receivers might be a little bit more valuable? Is it like a standard scoring league, so running backs are a little bit more valued? Or maybe it is a running back who gets a lot of receiving work, so maybe they're valuable. So again, the more details you hash out with these things, the better deal you're going to have at the end of the day, or at least better feedback you're going to get on the deal if you're trying to bring in outside people. Another aspect Xavier kind of touched on is going to lead us straight into the second point. And the word here for this section is just understanding. And really another word here that I can throw in here is just patience. Everybody values players, draft picks, different things in fantasy differently. You can't assume just because you think something is a good deal does not mean the other person you're trying to trade with is going to see it that way. And like I said, this brings back to communication. You have to talk to the person, find out what it is they hope to gain out of the trade. And again, I said understanding and patience. Patience, another part of this. You're not going to always get a deal right off the bat. You're going to probably have to go back and forth a little bit, try to figure it out, and they're not going to always respond immediately. I'm currently waiting on one or two guys who have suggested an interest in trading with me in a couple of my leagues, and they haven't responded to me today, but that's fine. I'm okay to wait. Unless the deadline's coming like up tomorrow and everything, but even still, like you have time. Rome wasn't built in a day, and trades aren't always made in a day either. So take your time with it. So Xavier, what are your thoughts on understanding and I guess / patience?
Yeah, I think it's just coincides with communication of like, during those interactions, you're understanding how your would-be trade partner is valuing his players. And if you find a way of like, all right, this maybe this guy is valued a lot more higher than I thought, and maybe you have to give up a little bit more than you're initially were ready to do, or maybe you can work out a deal and hash it out. It's just more about like, all right, what am I willing to give up, and what am I willing to negotiate and come to some sort of middle ground. Basically, like, yeah, what's the value here? Let me see about coming from his perspective. Maybe he feels like it's being disrespected. Maybe it's like a little fleece type thing. So maybe you have those sort of situations where maybe it feels like you're being taken advantage of, because ultimately trades, I mean, there's always going to feel like there's somebody that's a winner and a loser, but then there's, rarely you find those guys that are like, hey, maybe we both won this trade. We both needed players of need, and we both satisfied them. And I think those are very good, and I love those type of trades. But usually most likely you'll see the one or the other of like, oh, I'm trying to take advantage of this person because maybe they don't understand what's truly going on. And that's why the understanding aspect of it is truly important. Of like, all right, am I putting my best trade out there that I don't put myself at a disadvantage, and I'm not sitting at like a disrespectful offer to the your league mate. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think that leads perfectly into our third thing here. And this to me is the most important aspect of the trade, and that's respect. The mantra of remember the human here applies greatly here. You have to remember when you are talking about trading with somebody else, they're not just a faceless profile picture on their team or whatever it is. You're talking to another human being, another person who is looking to best manage their fantasy roster. You don't need to go into any trades looking to screw somebody or just trying to trick somebody into taking a bad deal or anything. You should go into it knowing that this is another person who is looking to try to benefit their league. Another thing here, I this is more of a pet peeve of mine, but I'm also going to just throw this in here. Never go into a trade conversation talking talking about like, oh, I know what's best for your team, you're being the other person in the trade, that is a great way for a trade discussion to get shut down very quickly with a lot of people. Because like I said, that's another human being you're talking to, and they're another manager of their own team. They know what's best for their team at the end of the day. Whether it works out or not, it's got to be on them at the end of the day. You should not be trying to convince them, oh, this will benefit you, this won't. Sometimes you can have your opinion on their team. That's fine. But at the end of the day, it has to be them, and you shouldn't be trying to tell them exactly what they need, what you think that they need. So, other than that, again, like I said, respect is huge. Respect is going to, if two people in a trade feel like that one is respecting the other, that is going to be huge in terms of an actual trade getting done in that aspect. And then one last thing I do want to kind of throw in here, and this is more of just my own personal experience and everything. When you first get a trade offer from somebody, a lot of times the trade is not going to look good, and you're going to say, what are you even thinking? And you'll even feel a little bit disrespected sometimes because you think, wow, you must think I'm an idiot for even thinking about taking that trade. I just ask everybody to just take a breath if that ever happens to you. And know that sometimes you're dealing with a person who may be newer to CFF, doesn't know exactly the value of different players, or may have a different view of value in players and stuff like that. And just still open the channel of communication. Again, like we'll go back to the first point. Open the channel, talk to them, let them know you don't think it's a good deal. Let them know what you think is a good deal. Again, opening that communication is huge. These three things, communication, understanding, respect, they all coincide with each other. Like, again, it's not easy for me to just break down. Like, you'll notice as I'm talking through each of these, each one works into the other. So, Xavier, what are your thoughts on the respect angle?
Yeah, absolutely. I think ultimately it comes down to like we are people, we are human. We all want to be respected and treated like, fairly and the same as you would respect yourself and others. So I think it's definitely important in trades. I mean, ultimately you're looking to gain something. But at the same time, you're like obviously in a trade, it has to be a mutual agreement. So both sides have to have, coming to an agreement. So honestly, it definitely correlates with the other two important aspects of this, to where respect, respect is very crucial and key, to where if you really want to get things done and have the conversation to keep on moving to in a good place of like, I really want this player, and the channel of communication like doesn't want to be closed too quickly or too prematurely, then respect can go a long way in terms of how long you can like have those talks and negotiations, to where ultimately you could end up having a higher chance of reaching what you really want. Say if it's let's take an example of Jalen Cropper and Josh Downs are having good seasons. If you truly want those wide receivers, then you're honestly going to have to give something up that maybe it may seem like too much, but at the end of the day, if you want it and you are open and honest about it, then the other party will be more comfortable with making that deal with you if it feels like it's a fair trade.
Like I said, like if somebody comes into a trade and they feel like the other person is trying to screw them, that's a very quick way for the deal to fall apart. So therefore, respect for each other, mutual respect for each other, I think is important in any trade deal. The last little thing I do want to kind of add in here, this is not like a bullet point or anything. You won't see this on the screen and everything, but it's okay for a trade not to happen. I think that's I do think that is something that we have to kind of talk about here, is that after a while, if things just aren't going the way you want to, and again, going back to understanding, if you just find that the two parties involved just value things too differently, you just sometimes just things don't happen, and that's okay. You have to understand that like sometimes you just have to respectfully say, I don't think anything's going to happen here. I appreciate you talking to me, and let's walk away.
Yeah.
So with that, we shall respectfully walk away from trade talk. That was kind of fun to dive into something new there. And now we're going to go and move on to our big games of the week. I will be real with y'all. This schedule is soft, to say kindly. There are 0 ranked v ranked matchups this week. And in terms of the big helmet games of the week, I kind of chose a lot of games where I thought the spread usually was kind of interesting, and or I do think it is going to affect things down the line. So with that being said, let's go ahead and move on to our first game of the night. Let me just write something down real quick. All right. So first game we have on board here, Wisconsin, unranked Wisconsin at number 25 Purdue. This is a 3 p.m. Big Ten Network. Xavier, who is favored in this game, do you think?
I mean, for you asking the question, I'm thinking about this logically. If Purdue's coming off that big win against Iowa, but at the same time, I feel like it's going to be shocking. So I'm going to go with Wisconsin, but probably not by much.
Wisconsin by 3.
Yeah.
But basically home field advantage here. If they were a neutral field, Vegas would probably be putting this at a pick'em game.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of interesting because Purdue coming off a massive win on the road over Iowa against another good defensive team, kind of like Wisconsin is. Wisconsin's offense is not very good. So do you think the difference here is just a home field advantage, or do you think Purdue has enough firepower to get the upset here?
I do think that, it's the Big Ten. They're both not that great of Big Ten teams, and you're in the Wisconsin environment. And I think Wisconsin, with not to say their offense, but with what I've seen from Braylon Allen these past couple of weeks, a great freshman for Wisconsin. It looks like the future lead back for that program. I understand why Wisconsin gets the edge. I do love the firepower of David Bell, but I think that's it. Aiden O'Connell is a great quarterback. I love Jack Plummer going into the year. He obviously got hurt. So, it's really nothing. You lost Sander Horvath as well, too. Your defense is not that outstanding. So I think I'll as much as I've gotten on Wisconsin this entire year, I'll roll with the Badgers on this one. Okay. I think that running back room with Ches Malusi and Braylon Allen will be enough. And then what they can do just a little bit defensively and having that home environment can be enough to push them over the edge.
So I'm going to go the opposite way with this. I'm going to take Purdue. And here's why. I just looked it up just to confirm my feelings. And really with Wisconsin, you almost don't have to worry about that passing game at all. So I figured, okay, they're going to be rushing. So what does Purdue's rushing defense looks like? Well, they're 30th in the nation, which, isn't exemplary, but it's also pretty freaking good for 130 teams and all that. So I think they're able to slow down Wisconsin just enough. And I think, as we saw with David Bell last week, it doesn't matter how good a defense is. Sometimes you can just pop off in a game like that. And if they're able to get Payne Durham back as that second major option, TJ Sheffield really came on strong for Purdue last week against Iowa. So if they're able to get multiple targets down the field, I could see Purdue winning this game, winning relatively handily, in my opinion. And in addition to that, I just looked at the Big Ten West standings. Purdue is currently tied for second behind Iowa, but they beat Iowa. So once they get another win under their belt in the Big Ten West, they're the leading team. They got something to play for here. So I think Purdue is your option going for. I think Purdue wins this game.
Okay. Yeah, I will mention, I think, with Purdue being the 30th ranked rushing defense, they have done good against teams with great running backs. I think even though they lost to Notre Dame, Kyron Williams and Chris Tyree still had productive days, maybe not Tyree so much. And then with the loss against Minnesota, Trishawn Potts still had a productive day. And I think with Allen and Malusi, I think with that tandem, we'll push them over the edge. That's probably my sort of thinking.
No, fair enough. All right, so we'll move on to the next one here. We have number 8 Oklahoma State at Iowa State. Xavier, I'll ask you again, who's favored in this game? And by how much?
I feel like we're just going with the opposite of today. I think personally in my mind, Oklahoma State, they're a little bit fraudulent to me. I don't view them as a top, top 12, top 15 program.
They are
in the
number
nation.
8 in the AP poll this week.
God. So the top 10 team, I don't view them as I don't rate them that highly. But I think a lot of people still have high hopes for Iowa State and what they have and what Campbell has ahead of them. So I think probably Iowa State is favored because if it's at Iowa State, then I can understand why Iowa State would be favored.
Well, Iowa State is favored by a touchdown in this game.
Ooh.
So I think Vegas knows something here, and I think they know that OSU last week was kind of like the Iowa wins of recent memory. It's almost a little bit misleading of a final score because OSU would not get that 8-point margin on Texas if Texas didn't throw an interception there on the final drive of their play. Oklahoma State just runs down there, scores once more. That game was a little bit closer than I think people were giving credit for. Now, again, I gave Oklahoma State all the credit. I thought that was a great win for them. And if they beat Iowa State on the road this week, I think that would even be another great win for them to notch under their belt. However, I've seen what Iowa State looks like after they come out of the bye. They look like a better team already. And in previous years, like once the bye comes around, Iowa State usually looks like a much better team. They always struggle near the beginning and they get better as the season goes on. So I see the reason why Iowa State is ranked as high as they are. And honestly, I think they just got a little bit more to work with here. Breece Hall, I still think is one of the best running backs in the nation. I know he's kind of fallen off a lot of people's radars because God forbid he didn't put up 30 points a game for fantasy. But even still, he's still one of the best running backs in the nation. He's going to be a top 3 running back for the NFL draft this upcoming year. I think he'll be the main reason why Iowa State wins this game. I'm going to take Iowa State.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take Iowa State as well. Even though I don't trust Purdy that much, I think with what they bring back defensively, and Oklahoma State being in a lot of close games, Texas was a great win in terms of. They didn't look great in the first half, and honestly, I don't think you're going to play teams like Texas where they completely implode for another half. So that's why I have Iowa State in this game as well too.
Yeah, Iowa State's a very disciplined team. They'll limit their turnovers. I said that until they played Iowa. But even so, I think they're a more disciplined team coming out of the bye. I think they'll do well.
Yeah.
Go ahead and move on to our next game here. This is going to be number 10 Oregon at UCLA. Xavier, I'm going to ask you again who is favored in this game.
Oregon's number 10? Really?
Oregon is number 10.
Wow. Can't believe they're still that high up there. Okay. I'd be shocked if it's still UCLA favored in this game, but it's sounding like it might be.
UCLA is favored by 2.5 points in this game.
Okay.
This is a 3:30 game on ABC. So Xavier, what's your reaction to that? Do you agree with the spread? Do you not?
No, not at all. That is a surprising spread for me to hear. UCLA had that hot start for the first 3 or 4 weeks, and after that, nothing, flat. I still love the run game of Zach Charbonnet and Britton Brown, but DTR has just fallen off the wagon to where he can't get anything going in the passing game, and his legs are, they're still live, and they're still attractive enough to where all right, yeah, you still have this weapon, with your mobility, but at the same time, you're not getting anywhere. You're not getting down the field, causing first downs, getting touchdowns. So it just doesn't seem to bode well, especially if Oregon. I haven't caught up with them. I don't know if Kayshon Thibodeau is back, but they still have a lot of great people on that on that defense with Flo and Thibodeau and a few other players. So I think with Oregon, you're going to have to throw the ball, and that's not going to bode well for UCLA, especially with Kyle Phillips coming off. He just got back to practice, I think, so he's coming off an injury a little bit. So it will be interesting to see. I wouldn't be super shocked because it's the Pac-12 and they like to beat up on each other, but I think Oregon is just a little bit better than UCLA.
So here's the funny thing. I just looked. I was looking at their passing defense, and Oregon is 110th in the nation. UCLA is 122nd.
Yeah, they're both bad.
But here's the problem: neither one of these teams have a quarterback that can pass.
No.
Anthony Brown is not going to be that guy. DTR has been on the massive struggle bus with passing recently, so it's not like even these teams can take advantage of the weakness in the passing game. So if that's the case, you have to come down to rushing. So give me a second here. If I look at the rushing totals, UCLA 9th in rushing defense in the country. So I think that's a big red flag for Oregon right there. And then if we go and find Oregon, where is Oregon at? Good thing for them. They have a very easily recognizable logo. They're 59th in rushing. So I can see a low-scoring game out of these two. I actually can see a very similar result to last week where UCLA beat Washington 24-17. I don't really know who's going to be that 24, who's going to be that 17, but I can see a similar score to that at the end of the day. And I'm going to roll with the talent. I'm going to go with Oregon. I think they'll have the better guys at the end of the day, like you said, on defense, make some plays, maybe cause a turnover or two, and I think Oregon can win that way. I think this is going to be another very unconvincing win for Oregon, and a lot more doubts are going to continue to be raised about them, but I'll take them in the win.
Yeah, I think all doubts have been cast aside. I think people know what the Pac-12 is. At this point, they have no shot of making the playoffs. That went away once you lost to, Stanford. So, sorry, Pac-12 and Oregon. Better luck next year, I guess.
No, fair enough. So you're going to take Oregon as well, I imagine?
Absolutely.
Cool beans. All right. So, next one. You already know who's favored in this one. I know that.
Do I?
Do you?
I don't.
Oh, really? All right. I'll ask again. Who is favored in unranked Clemson at number 23 Pittsburgh?
I would hope it would be Pittsburgh.
It is Pittsburgh. They are favored by 3
thank
points.
God.
The first time, I believe, since 2014 that Clemson has been not favored in a regular season game. The last time that Clemson wasn't favored was when Lamar Jackson was playing at Louisville. So, Xavier, what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I think, honestly, if Pitt, I think the game plan for Pitt is to honestly just cross that probably like a 24-point threshold to beat Clemson, honestly. And if you cross that, you win the game because they can't produce anything on offense. So, with Clemson not having Will Shipley, like he is expected to come back to practice, but he's not going to be any game ready anytime soon. Mm-hmm. Still Kobe Pace. A lot of those receivers are still not what we were used to seeing. And DJ, I feel bad for DJ because I think he is an excellent quarterback. I just think he needs the right personnel with him. And not to say that DJ can't elevate his players. It's just like, hey, if you have all wide receivers with the same skill set and teams figure that out, then there's nothing much you can do without a run game as well, too. So, and the O-line being battered down to essentially nothing. It's just a recipe for disaster. So I think Pitt with Kenny Pickett and, in the past weeks, Israel, I can't say his last name. I think it's Abanak. I tried. Well, just say Izzy.
Abanak, I believe it is.
Abanak Honda. With his production in the past few weeks, I think he's finally coming along. And Jordan Addison looks like a stud, sophomore wide receiver. So I think with the combination of all that going well for Pitt, and it being at home, it's just going to bode well for Pitt. And I think it's going to be great for their program as well too.
Yeah, I literally was convinced. Like, because part of me has a gut feeling that Clemson wins this game because why the hell not?
Yeah, of course.
It's like, of course they win this game. Like, they look beatable for the first time, and then they're just going to continue to win these small margin games, look completely unconvincing, kind of like how Georgia was a couple years ago with our offense, except Clemson's offense is even worse than that was.
Yeah.
But like you said, there's just too many factors, I think, just going Pittsburgh's way here. Their offense is legitimately a great offense in the ACC. Their defense can step up when they need to, except when they're playing Western Michigan for some reason. Clemson still, to me, has one of the best defenses in the country. I absolutely can see them holding Pittsburgh under 28 points here. But again, the question then becomes, can Clemson score enough? And just nothing has said to me that they can do that. And then again, playing at Pittsburgh, the home field advantage being on Pittsburgh's side, crowd riling up Clemson's offense a little bit, an offense that's been shown to be prone to mistakes. Just nothing is really showing me to go Clemson's way here, and that's why I think Pittsburgh's favored in this game. The only thing that could really push me onto Clemson's side if they just straight up out-talent Pittsburgh, and I think Pittsburgh's too good and too disciplined of a team to let that happen. So I'm going to take Pittsburgh. Are you going to take Pittsburgh as well?
Yeah.
Sounds good. Any other thoughts on this game before we move on?
No.
Sounds bueno. All right. Final helmet game we have here. Again, these are all right. Again, we have no additional games of interest because there's not really a ton to talk about on this week's schedule. So we have just helmet games, and then we're going to move on to the over-under games where we'll talk a little bit more about specific players in each of these games. But anyway, here's our last one. We got USC at number 13 Notre Dame. Xavier, what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, Notre Dame by a landslide. In all honesty, unless Jackson Dart can magically walk.
Well,
back
then
onto
you're
the
going to
field.
be surprised that USC is favored in this game. I'm joking.
It's gonna be like, no, there's no way. I'd be like, I'd go run to Vegas right now and put my life savings on Notre Dame to win that game.
Anyway.
So yeah, I think USC with the loss of Clay Helton. I mean, not to say that he was a great coach, but with the interim coach, and then you have your players. At this point, I don't know what you're fighting for. Probably not the greatest morale. I mean, Drake London is going to continue to put up great film for his draft stock. Even I think he's going to have a decent day. You're going against a good secondary with Notre Dame that can cause turnovers, but I think you're that talented of a receiver that even if Keaton Slovis doesn't have the greatest day, I think Drake London is still going to be able to get the ball and make him look good at times. But overall, that's not going to win you a football game. You don't have a run game. I do like some of the young talent that you have with Triggs at tight end, and then Gary Bryant Jr. Trying to think of anybody else. Michael Jackson. So we'll see how he looks in this game.
All over the field.
Taj Washington, if he can show up for maybe USC this week. But I mean, overall, it's just not going well for USC, especially like who they lose to? Oregon State. Ever since that, you've just not been the same. And I think like Jackson Dart was probably, I mean, that's something to look forward to next season. You don't have to worry about Slovis anymore unless he decides to come back.
He might come back, dude.
But at the same time, you're going to be fighting for a QB battle that I honestly think you're going to lose. Whoever they hire a head coach, I think they're going to realize, hey, maybe you're not it.
I hate to say it, but Dart getting injured right after his first start might have been the best thing for Slovis because that just delayed the inevitable by probably until the end of the season.
And then Notre Dame side, Michael Myers coming back finally. Super happy for him. They said Kelly said he's 100% ready to go. I think this is a perfect game for him to come back out and be that lead pass catcher.
That's
for
great news for our Kings Classic.
Yeah, Kevin Austin and God, I forget the other receiver that was doing well for Notre Dame.
Avery Davis.
They've been holding it down so far, and Kyron Williams and Chris Tyree are going to run all over Southern California. So it's going to be just a good day for Notre Dame. I don't know what the spread is, but if I was determining the line, I'd say Notre Dame by 2 touchdowns.
Is Notre Dame by a touchdown? So Xavier's saying bet on Notre Dame in the points this week.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't blame you entirely. Again, you basically covered almost all my thoughts on this game. The thing I'm interested in is watching this QB battle. Battle is a weird way to say this because it doesn't feel like that Buckner, Pine, and Cone are really in a battle. It's just more of Brian Kelly just throwing them out there on random drives, just trying to see who has the hot hand every single week. And it really is kind of a frustrating thing from a CFF perspective. I have no idea who's going to start in this game. It's probably going to be Jack Cone because he looks like the guy that Brian Kelly trusts the most in kind of high-stress games. This is a rivalry game. Let's not forget this. So I imagine that USC could come out on fire for this game, trying to prove themselves for the next head coach coming in. But even still, I'm with you. I'm rolling with Notre Dame here.
Yeah, I think with Notre Dame not having anything to play for, Kelly can just throw out whatever quarterback he wants, knowing that he could still win the game on defense. So it's definitely frustrating from the CFF side, but I think this is probably the best situation for him, honestly. In my opinion, of how to handle this QB situation of like Pine, Buckner, and Cone, because Cone is just like the immediate solution for the season. Like he's going to take you as far as he's going to take you, and he has. I mean, you weren't able to beat Cincinnati, but look, if you had maybe any type of better quarterback, or like if Buckner was, a third-year veteran with a lot more experience and maximized his talent, you could have won, but he's not there yet. He's a freshman, and Drew Pine for the same thing as him. But I think it's a great opportunity for these quarterbacks to get reps against these teams, knowing that they probably have enough talent in the run game to just run all over them and win. So I think it's going to bode well for the future of like next year. If Tyler Buckner gets that job, then I think he's going to be one of the hot commodities for CFF. Not to say like top 12 or 15, but he could have that type of potential with what they're building around him.
Absolutely. Like you said, just a young talent there. I think it'll be great for him. So those are our big matchups of the week. Now we're going to move on to our high over-under games. I actually remembered to take them off this week, so we don't have to worry about that this time. So we got 9 of these games to get through, so we're going to go through these probably as quickly as we can. So the first one we got up for you guys today, Tulane at number 21 SMU. This is the Thursday night, 7:30 p.m. ESPN game. The over-under on this game is 70. So Xavier, what players are you watching out for in this game? And do you have a sleeper or two on either team that you think could pop off in this game if people are looking for somebody to stream for this week?
Yeah, basically anybody on the SMU offense, from Tanner Mordecai to Ulysses Bentley, even though he didn't have a great game against Army. I'm still confused about that one, of like what his role was for that game. He only had like 2 carries for -2 yards or something like that, and it was really weird. But yeah, any receiver. I mean, I'm still excited for Danny Gray. Reggie Roberson looks like he's coming back in form. Rashi Rice is reliable with the targets that he gets and the possibility of a touchdown. Grant Calcaterra, great tight end. But if I had to pick a sleeper, probably Tulane's tight end. I forgot his name. We mentioned him in the recap.
Oh, Xavier loves him so much he can't remember his name.
I just know he's a tight end for Tulane. Tyreek James. I think SMU probably doesn't have one of the best. I think they're very low in pass defense, if I'm not mistaken. So Michael Pratt and Tyreek James could have, maybe a touchdown in there or two.
You are correct. They are above 100, I believe, in passing defense. Okay. Or I should know, they're 96.
So it's not the greatest, but I think that provides opportunity for Tulane to maybe throw the ball a little bit. Maybe Michael Pratt has to, throw more than 20 passes a game. So maybe it may be an interesting game to see.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. 100%. Like everybody on SMU, I would be starting. The sleeper I'm going to throw out here is another player on SMU. A lot of people talk about Ulysses Bentley, but what really people haven't really been talking about is that running back Trey Siggers, transferred from North Texas, has been getting close to, if not just as many carries as him. Now, he doesn't have the efficiency that Bentley does, but that almost won't matter when they're going up against Tulane, who's 110th against the rush. So I think you could see Trey Siggers grab a touchdown or 2 in this game and have a pretty good day on the ground. So he's going to be my sleeper for this game. Okay. So we'll move on to our next game. We got Louisiana at Arkansas State. This, again, a Thursday night game, 7:30 p.m. This is on ESPNU, and the over-under on this game is 68. So, Xavier, you went first last time. I'll go first this time. So Arkansas State has one of the worst defenses in the country, if not the worst defense in the country. Louisiana is about to score a ton of points on them. And so the question then remains, who do you start? Well, obviously you could always start at the quarterback. Levi Lewis, dual threat guy, limited on his passing abilities. He is not known to throw more than 25 passes in a game ever, really. But even still, they let him loose on the ground. He can absolutely get you some value in this game. Obviously, really any of the 3 running backs that Louisiana has been running with. Chris Smith has really come on over the past couple of weeks, finally. Looks like he might be finally getting that lead roll back, but even still, Montrell Johnson, Amani Bailey, I think all 3 of those guys are going to be worth their points this week, or at least taking the shot on them if you're really struggling at those positions. So pick them up and start them this week if you need to. And then on the Arkansas State side, you always have that trio of wide receiver, or really a quartet of wide receivers they got going on there. Just becomes a question of who gets the targets every week. Corey Rucker's probably your best bet, but he's probably owned on most leagues. So you got to be looking for guys like Jeff Foreman, Tevalence Hunt, and Dahu Green. I believe Dahu Green might be injured. I can't remember off the top of my head, but even still, definitely Jeff Foreman and Tevalence Hunt. If you're, again, struggling at receiver, just looking for some high upside guys, I think those are the guys to play. So Xavier, what are you thinking in this game, and do you have a sleeper or 2 that you like?
I'll say this. If you have a league where turnovers do not count, Lane Hatcher is getting the start for this game. I think that bodes well for him because James Blackman is coming off of a shoulder injury and he's going to be out for a couple of more weeks. So I think Arkansas State's passing game is going to look a lot better the foreseeable future until Blackman comes back, and then we're just back down in the pits. But I mean, I know for a lot of Corey Rucker owners, we've been a little bit hesitant. I know this past game against Georgia Southern, he kind of went off, doing things a little bit better with James Blackman. But it was against Georgia Southern. They had like one of the worst, if not the worst, passing defense in the country. They do. I do like Arkansas State, with Lane Hatcher, and I think it'll bode well for maybe they'll be able to put up points. I don't think they're going to win. And then with them having one of the worst passing defense, I think this is a perfect game for Kyron Lacy. I know a lot of people have given up on him and Levi Lewis in that connection, but I think he's good for one game. I think last week he had a touchdown. It was only for one reception. It was for a long one too. So I think going against a terrible passing defense, I think he's going to have opportunities to score, have maybe a few receptions where he gets open.
Yeah, so good couple of good sleepers there from Xavier. Lane Hatcher, a lot of people kind of forgetting about him, so don't forget to pick him up if you need a streamer at QB this week. And then Kyron Lacy, one of the guys I was high on coming into this year. I have since dropped him in my Dynasty League because it just doesn't look like that passing game is ever really going to take off. But regardless, Xavier's probably right. This might be the 1 week where he can really go off. So we'll go ahead and move on to our third game here. Memphis at UCF. This is the Friday 7 p.m. game on ESPN2. Over-under on this game, 65. Xavier, who are you liking in this game, and what's one or two sleepers that you like?
I'm liking almost the entire Memphis offense, probably minus one receiver. I like Sean Dykes. I like Calvin Austin. I like Javon Ivory. And I like Seth Hennigan. I think those are two valuable. Those are like 3 or 4 valuable guys that you should start. It is against UCF and Gus Malzahn's defense, but they haven't looked good in the past few weeks ever since Dylan Gabriel because they're out on the field a lot more. Mackie King is just turning it over on downs a lot, and they're getting a lot of 3 and outs. So it's just it's not clicking, and that defense is getting tired. So once Memphis leans them down, then I think Memphis will be able to take off for some big gains and a lot of points. Now on the UCF side, with Isaiah Bowser coming back from injury, I guess that would be my sleeper. If he's getting a lot more carries, and if he's getting back to fully healthy, then why not take a shot on him? If he can produce what he was producing before he got hurt, I think it was like before the Northwestern game or anything like that. I think that's what they played. So then I think he should bode well, especially back now that you're back within conference.
That makes sense. And again, if the situation plays out like you were kind of describing there, where UCF's defense does get tired by the end of the game and Memphis is just looking to run clock, win the game, big benefactor of that is going to be Brandon Thomas and really whoever that number two running back for Memphis is going to be. I could see them having a pretty big game here if what Xavier describes does play out. On the UCF side, really the sleeper I kind of want to mention here is Ryan O'Keefe, is getting a lot of the volume. Problem is he's not getting the touchdowns that you need. But even still, I think Ryan O'Keefe is available in a lot of leagues. Actually, let me double check that real quick. I'm curious off the top of my head.
I think he is. I think he's under 40% by our standards.
Ryan O'Keefe, I think, is a good play here. And then I'm also going to throw in Brandon Johnson, who doesn't really get the volume, but he's a massive red zone target for UCF. He has been all year. He's got tons of touchdowns. So I think he might be a sleeper play for you as well. So we'll go ahead and move on to our fourth over-under game. And really, we're going to be talking about one team here, one team only, because the spread is mostly based on the fact that one of these teams is going to score a lot of points. That's number 3, Oklahoma at Kansas. This is a noon game on ESPN on Saturday. This is the over-under on this game, 67.5. So, again, really, we're going to be talking about the Oklahoma guys. Caleb Williams, after what he did last week, if you don't start him, please seek psychiatric help. Either that or you must have the most stacked QB room I've ever seen in my entire life. And even still, he still might be one of the top 2 plays this week. So, yeah, Caleb Williams, obviously. Kennedy Brooks, I really think, has solidified that number 1 role for Oklahoma. So I expect him to have a big game. Really comes down to now, which wide receiver do you throw your dart on? And I really think there's good options. We saw that there's some repertoire with Jaden Hasselwood last week. He's available in a lot of leagues. So he might be a guy that you might be looking to pick up if he doesn't get picked up on waivers this week. Marvin Mims, we've seen him have some big games with Caleb Williams. Mike Woods, maybe not as much, but maybe it's his turn this week. So those are my guys I'm kind of looking for. Xavier, you got anybody else you're looking at in this game?
Yeah, Austin Stogner, tight end, and Jerry and Hall, tight end, wide receiver, running back, whatever. Lincoln Riley wants to have him play. I think he always finds a way.
He should have a designation, like a position designation titled touchdown vulture.
Yeah,
that's his only job.
That's what I was gonna get to. I was like, yeah, whatever Lincoln Riley wants him to do, yeah, he's just like gonna do it and get a touchdown with it. He's like, yeah, I just need you to go out there and make plays, and get touchdowns while you're doing it. So basically, that's who I'm not saying a big game, but if you just need a reliable floor of like, are you gonna get a touchdown? I put my money on Jaren Hall. I think, you brought Mike Woods. I think he had a good day against TCU. He dropped a touchdown pass that I thought Caleb Williams threw a perfect ball to. I think they're gonna, with more and more time and more practice, I think they're gonna get that connection because it was a legitimately good deep ball, and I think it was just, maybe he just mistimed it and didn't think the ball was gonna get there. Maybe he's used to Spencer Rattler like not being that good to throw it that far. So I think
Rattler
Mike Woods,
is so bad that he has screwed up his receivers. Is Xavier's
basically
take.
the timing is off. Everything is not like they're so surprised that they catch things in stride. Even though Caleb Williams has some underthrown balls, but the receivers are still able to catch it. So yeah, all the receivers, tight ends, anybody for Oklahoma should be fine. On the Kansas side, I can't think of anybody. I don't think they're going to be able to put up honestly much of anything. I mean, I guess
my
you could
boy
say
Jason Bean. He started off pretty well through the first 4 games, and he's had single-digit performances the last 2 weeks against pretty bad competition. So it looks like Kansas is just back to being Kansas.
Yeah, I'd only say Devin Neal for the volume that he might get because of Kansas being bad everywhere else. But even still, I don't think he's going to get that much. I'd be shocked if he get 20+ carries. But yeah, I mean, honestly, if the game strip allows it, then this probably be the game because you're going to be down a lot.
He has averaged 15, 17 carries in the last couple of games. So if he breaks 20, that'll be a first.
Yeah, I think this is going to be the 20-bomb game where he breaks it, but I don't think he's going to get many yards out of it. So
probably not, I'd say.
Yeah.
All right, we'll go ahead and move on to our 5th game here for the over-unders. We got Kent State at Ohio. This is a 1 p.m. ESPN Plus game. The over-under on this game is 64.5. I just kind of threw it in here because it was close enough. Like, it's right there.
You just wanted to round up.
I wanted to round up a little bit. It's okay. It's fine. It's fine. But regardless, Kent State at Ohio. Obviously, the big things are pointing towards the Kent State players.
Whoa, slow down now. I think it was my turn to talk about one side of the teams.
You're right, Xavier. I please forgive me. Please forgive me.
Yeah. No.
You can talk about the Kent State players if you want.
We will. We will absolutely dominate this segment because, buy any Kent State player you can. Dustin Crum, absolutely don't. It should not be a decision unless you have Bailey Zapp and Caleb Williams as your starting quarterbacks. I don't even think if Western Kentucky is playing. I don't know. Actually, they are because they're going to be a game later on. But, Dustin Crum, Marquez Cooper, Dante Cephas. I don't know if I'm forgetting who's the wide receiver too.
It probably either Nakeem Johnson or it's not Jashawn Polk, but probably Nakeem Johnson off the top of my head.
Nakeem Johnson, might as well throw him in there too. So it's just going to be a great day for Kent State and that offense, especially coming off of a tough loss to Western Michigan. They might take out their frustrations because they obviously want to get to that MAC championship and probably have a rematch with Western Michigan. So
Ohio is a bad team.
Absolutely.
They went up let's see. Yeah, they went 21-0 in the first quarter against Buffalo last week. Mm-hmm. The final score of that game is 27-26, and Ohio lost. They scored 5 points in the remaining 3 quarters, and Buffalo just kind of clawed their way back. Kent State's probably going to win this game and win this game big. Did you mention Marquez Cooper? Because
I did.
The game script's going to favor him, unlike last week. Last week he fell off because, unfortunately, the game script got away from him. They were not going to run the ball when they were down that many points to Western Michigan. But regardless, he's going to have a better day this week. I'm going to throw actually a sleeper on the Ohio side for this game because Kent State does have a horrific defense. So you're going to see some guys have better games than they typically do. And believe it or not, it's not Tuggle. I do like Tuggle. I think he'll have a good game in this game. But here's the thing. QB. It's Amari Rogers. This man had 22 carries last week as a QB, more than double the nearest running back. They are going to be relying on him so much in this game. And again, he's not going to pass anything, but if he takes off and runs, that's going to be awesome. Last week, 22 carries, 183 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That is the way to go with Amari Rogers. So if you're looking for just a sleeper guy who's going up against a bad defense this week, I think Amari Rodgers is absolutely a play.
I will warn people that he wasn't the starting quarterback going in. I don't know what's going on with the O'Rourke. I think that's his name, or Rook.
Nathan Rook.
Yeah, we'll see. It's hard to get
Curtis.
news about the Mac, about what's going on with the players, because I don't know if he's injured, if he got benched, or what's going on. So I'll try to keep an eye on it to see, because Amari Rodgers was not starting, and it was kind of Rook's team to lead. So we'll see. But I do like Amari Rodgers for fantasy of his rushing ability.
That is fair. That's a fair warning. We'll go ahead and move on to our 6th game here, and I will go first this time, and I'm not going to forget. I would have put this game in our helmet games because this is a pretty big game in my opinion. LSU at number 12, Ole Miss, the 3:30 CBS game. Over under on this game, 70-6. The problem with this is that Matt Corral is looking like he is doubtful for this week. So if you haven't gotten that under yet, I'd recommend it. I don't think this game hits anywhere near 76. Here's the thing. You have an LSU team that completely rolled Florida last week. You got an Ole Miss team that is now likely missing their starting quarterback. I don't know how this game's going to go, if I'm being real. Luke Altmaier was the one who came in and took snaps for Ole Miss when Matt Corral was knocked out of the Tennessee game last week. We didn't get to see him really do anything, but we have no idea how he'll perform in a game, especially in an SEC game against LSU, which, for all their faults, still has a lot of talent on that defense.
They do have one more quarterback.
Well, John Rice Plumlee, I agree, but here's the problem: he didn't come in for he didn't come in for Matt Corral last week. It looks like he's moved full time over to wide receiver, which is fine. But man, if John Rice Plumlee was playing this week, I would have loved that. Because that would have helped my SEC basketball league a lot. Because I drafted him in that, hoping that maybe he would take over at one point if possible. But even still, players to play in this game, it's hard because you want to say Tyrion Davis-Price because of his great.
I will.
Because of his week last week, and he's going up against a bad defense again. But also he's had 3, maybe 400-yard rushing games in his career at LSU, so it's not exactly something we should expect week in and week out. Max Johnson, if these repertoire with these younger receivers like Brian Thompson, Jere Jenkins, and who's the other one? Jack Besh. If these repertoire keeps building with these young receivers, he could have a great day. And any of those wide receivers, I think, if you want to take a flyer on any of those guys, I think those are fine. On the Ole Miss side of things, again, if Matt Corral's not there, I think you suddenly see a massive shift towards Jerry and Ely, Snoop Connor, and the running game, or Henry Parrish as well, the running game for Ole Miss. And I think you see a better day from them, unless Luke Altmaier and Lane Kiffin really is a magician, just turns his freshman quarterback into basically just mini Matt Corral. So I think it'll be interesting. Xavier, what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I think with Matt Corral being out, that definitely takes a nick at this game. I'm really worrying about if the O-line is going to be healthy. They missed both their tackles last game, if I'm not mistaken. I remember I was watching the Tennessee game, and I was like, man, missing both of your tackles, that's kind of rough for QB. And especially if it's not going to be a mobile QB like Matt Corral has been so far this season. I would hope that it would bode well for them to get healthier, have somebody as a better replacement. Like you said, I trust in the run game for Ole Miss. I do like those 3 players. I think, like we saw that one game where it was like 4, Matt Corral included, almost had like over 100 yards, and the other 3 did. So I think they can absolutely rely on the run game. It's just that, if LSU does have the game script to go against it, you're not playing Matt Corral, and Braylon Sanders is kind of hurt as well too, and all you have is Dontario Drummond and honestly Ja'Cory Pearson and somebody else, then it's not going to look too well. Jackson. Okay. So, I mean, LSU, it's going to be weird because I really think Ole Miss is a good team. I think a lot of people do as well, but I wouldn't be shocked, and I wouldn't want to tear down Ole Miss for losing to LSU, even though LSU has lost a lot in that secondary. And I would hope the quarterback will test that, and also what they don't have on offense as well too, with Kayshon Boutte and the lack of run game. Now, I will say I do believe in Tyrion Davis-Price for this week. I think with the volume that he's getting, and two
Oh,
back-to-back
if he
weeks.
gets another 36 carries in a game, like it doesn't even
I mean,
matter
but
if he's not even doing that
even the
well.
week before, he had like 20 plus carries and still had a good 100-yard game. So I think, and that's honestly that's the formula for them. So I think that just bodes well to where I don't care like how talented or how the lack of talent that he does have. If you're getting those carries, you're going to get yards. So, and that's going to add up eventually. So I'd put him in. Maybe I'd be a little bit hesitant about the receivers. Maybe Jared Jenkins is the only one I would really take a shot on because he's been there for a while. The younger ones you have to see.
Yeah, fair enough. We'll go ahead and move on to our 7th over-under game here. Tennessee at number 4 Alabama, 7 p.m. ESPN game. Over-under of 67.5 on this one. Xavier, I believe it is your turn to start. So I think you'll get the easy one here.
Yeah, start everybody for Alabama. They are on a warpath where Saban is hopping mad. So yeah, Bryce Young looked great against Mississippi State. I think Mississippi State had terrible pass defense, and even in the rush where they've been good, I think the talent just came over them. Where Brian Robinson has probably been one of the best backs they've seen so far this year, and the D-line can't compete. So Brian Robinson Jr. as well too. John Mechie, Jamison Williams, Cameron Latu, Jaleel Billingsley. I'd be a little bit more hesitant on those younger receivers, like maybe a JoJo Earl, or especially with the Jai Hall. I doubt he even plays after Saban saw that tweet. Trying to think of anybody else. Yeah, honestly, those players are just named. And on the Tennessee side, Hendon Hooker. I'm glad to see that his injury is not like a season-ending injury, but I don't think he's going to play this game. And also with who else is injured? Was it Jabari Small or Tyon Evans?
Tyon Evans is currently injured.
So Tyon Evans, they're dealing with some neck.
He was warming up last game, and then at the end of warm-ups, he went back in, changed into street clothes. So it sounds like he's close to being there. He just wasn't ready for Ole Miss.
Yeah, but at the same time, I don't want you going against that Alabama front of Will Anderson and the rest of those guys. So it's definitely going to be a tough guy. It's going to be a tough choice if I would start anybody on the Tennessee offense, especially if Hendon Hooker's not playing, then I'm not starting anybody on that Tennessee offense. I don't think I would start the running back.
I went through this earlier with one of my leagues because I had both Jabari Small and Tyon Evans just as an insurance policy. And I was thinking about my waivers and everything. And I just, at the end of it, I was just like, you know what? They got a rough schedule coming up. I'm just going to drop them. And I did. And so that really, to me, that leaves, like you said, if Hendon Hooker's not starting, I'm not starting those wide receivers because Joe Milton's about to throw the ball over the mountains. And I
don't want my running backs getting beat up to hell by the Alabama D line in front, where Saban's going to be screaming at them to do worse.
Exactly. So I'd like to say that there's some Tennessee sleeper that I'm looking at here. Hold on, there's a bug on my webcam. I just flipped them off. But there really isn't. And if I had to pick a sleeper on Bama, Trayshawn Holden is a name that I think people need to keep an eye on for the next week or two, because Bama needed a receiver or two on the younger side to kind of step up, join up with Jamison Williams and John Mechie, and I think Trayshawn Holden might be that surprise candidate. So I'm not saying start him, but definitely keep him on your watch list this week. So we'll go ahead and move on to the 8th game here. This is Western Kentucky at Florida International, 7 p.m. ESPN Plus. Over under on this game, 77. So
The floor is yours.
Floor is mine, and I'll take both of these guys. Western Kentucky, freaking start everyone. These teams are there's a reason why this game's over under 70. These are both pretty good offenses going up against terrible defenses. Western Kentucky can basically score on anybody in the country, and for a fact that Jarrett Stearns is going to be getting over 100 yards and at least a touchdown in this game. Bailey Zapp's probably going to throw for 4 or 5 touchdowns. Probably throw in Malachi Corley, throw in Mitchell Tinsley. All of these guys, start them all. On the Florida International side, Max Bortenschlager, one of the best QB names in the country. Absolutely start him because Western Kentucky's passing defense is atrocious, and he's got some good options there. He's got Bryce Singleton. He's also got Tyrese Chambers, one of our current favorite wide receivers. They should have a big game here. And then obviously Devontae Price, their stud running back, he should absolutely be getting plenty of work in this game as well. There's really not much sleepers here for me to really point out. It's just start your studs. So Xavier, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with you. I think start your studs at this point. Yeah.
All right. So we'll go ahead and move on to our 9th and final over-under game of the week, and that is going to be Georgia Tech at Virginia. This is a 7:30 ACC Network game. The over-under on this game, 65.5. So Xavier, the floor is yours on this one. Who are you starting, and who are your sleepers in this game?
Brennan Armstrong, obviously, for Virginia. I love Jelani Woods. I definitely needed a tight end this past week, and I picked him up off the waiver wire, and I feel like he's a guaranteed touchdown machine when he's back healthy. And I'm not saying he's going to get a lot of yards, but I needed a safe floor, and Jelani Woods provided that. I think he's a good passing option. Dotavius Wicks as well, too. Billy Kemp Jr., the fourth. Well, God, why am I forgetting the other receiver? Rashawn Henry could have a good game this game, and I feel like I'm forgetting one more name.
You said Billy Kemp, you said Wicks, you said Rashawn Henry. Keontae Thompson if he comes back from injury.
Okay. Yeah, and then for the Georgia Tech side, Virginia's not that great defensively, so maybe this is the Jahmyr Gibbs game that everybody's been expecting. I think he's still a great running back for the NFL in the future, but it's just that he's on a Georgia Tech team that's probably not built for him. Jeff Sims, absolutely. So those are my two guys. I'd probably start for Georgia Tech. And that's it.
I'm going to throw in a sleeper here again. Georgia Tech, it looks like Kyrick McGowan really has kind of solidified himself as a pretty good receiver for them going forward. So if you're looking for a guy at receiver, Virginia's passing defense is one of the worst in the country. So I can absolutely see him going off in this game. So there's your sleeper right there. All right. I think that brings us to the end of our show. We're hitting right at an hour. Perfection. Didn't go over this time. So once again, thank you guys so much for listening. And please make sure you are following us on all of our platforms. Twitter, I'm at CFF_Jared. He is at CFF_Xavier. Make sure you're following us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Leaving those 5-star reviews whenever you can. We love reading those. And again, on Twitter and everything, make sure you're DMing us, adding us for all your CFF questions. We love hearing from you guys. We love answering your questions best that we can. And then on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're commenting down below, whether that's just telling us we're doing a good job, whether it's saying, hey, rather you change this format up a little bit. We love suggestions. As you've been kind of seeing, I've been trying to incorporate like little small suggestions that you guys have been giving me for the show, especially in the graphics or just the show in general in terms of how we talk about things. You'll notice this week with over-unders, I try to emphasize sleepers a little bit more in a lot of these over-under games because that's what you guys asked for. We want to hear from you guys. So with all that being said, Xavier, do you have anything else before we head out?
No, I think you touched on everything. Yeah, like Jared said, follow us on all, social media platforms, primarily our Twitters at CFF_Jared, at CFF_Xavier. And I hope you all have a good night and be on the lookout for the Kings Classic League on Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. Thursday or Friday?
Probably record Thursday, put it out on Friday.
Okay, then, yeah. Be on the lookout on Friday.
So, yeah. Y'all have a blessed day. See ya.